The Cadets Challenge. On a planet known for its deadly creatures and dangerous wildlife, there was a young cadet named Jessa. She wasn't like the others. Her world, a death world filled with constant threats, had shaped her into someone tough and resilient. Yet no one thought she would make it. She wasn't tall like the other cadets, nor did she have the powerful physique that many of her peers boasted. But Jessa had something else. She had a sharp mind and an unyielding determination. Today, she stood on the edge of a large alien training ground, looking out at the wilds beyond. The place was designed to test the bravest cadets, those who would one day lead armies and defend their species. The creatures that roamed this alien land were unlike anything from her home planet. It was a place of hidden dangers, where predators of all shapes and sizes lurked, waiting to strike. Jessa knew what she was up against. She had seen the other cadets fumble during their first trials, falling prey to the deadly creatures that roamed freely in the area. Today, she would prove them wrong. Today, she would show them that she could survive just like anyone else. Her assignment was simple but brutal. Survive for 24 hours in the wilderness. No weapons, no supplies, just herself against whatever the alien world could throw at her. As the training officer's voice echoed through the loudspeakers, Jessa felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "Good luck, cadet," he said. "We'll see you in 24 hours." With those words, the heavy metal gate in front of her opened, and she stepped out into the unknown. The wilds were unforgiving. The air was thick with humidity, and the sound of rustling leaves filled the space around her. She quickly learned that the beauty of the alien forest was deceiving. What looked like a peaceful landscape was anything, but every shadow seemed to hide a predator, and every crack of a twig made her heart race. Jessa moved quickly, using her instincts to avoid being seen. Her years of survival training back on her death world kicked in. She knew how to hide, how to read the terrain, and how to make herself a ghost in the forest. But even with all her preparation, the fear was still there. The fear that one wrong step could mean the end. Suddenly, a loud screeching sound echoed from above. Jessa's heart skipped a beat. Looking up, she saw a massive winged creature circling, high above the treetops. It was a predator, one of the deadliest on this alien world. The creature's talons were sharp enough to slice through metal, and its eyes glowed with a menacing red hue. Jessa didn't have time to hesitate. She ducked behind a large rock and pressed her back to the cold stone. Her breathing slowed, her mind calculating every move she would make next. She knew that she couldn't outrun this predator, not in the open. Her only chance was to stay hidden, stay out of sight, and wait for the right moment. The minutes felt like hours, but Jessa didn't move. She didn't dare. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the predator soared off into the distance. Jessa let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. She had survived the first challenge, but she knew this was only the beginning. There were worse creatures out there waiting for her to make a mistake. As she crouched in the shadows, Jessa felt a surge of confidence. She had faced the predator and won, but she couldn't get too comfortable. The wilderness was full of surprises, and the true challenge had only just begun. The predator's lair. The moment the predator flew out of sight, Jessa didn't let herself relax. Her heart was still pounding in her chest, and the adrenaline coursed through her veins. She couldn't afford to stay in one place for too long. The wilderness was full of dangers that were always just a heartbeat away from finding her. She had no choice but to keep moving. She slipped through the dense underbrush, her movements quiet and deliberate. Every step was calculated, every noise carefully avoided. Jessa had learned the art of staying hidden from years of survival on her homeworld. On a death world, creatures didn't just hunt for food, they hunted to kill, to dominate. It had taught her how to be aware of every sound, every shift in the environment. But this alien world was different. The predators here were smarter, more cunning. As she moved deeper into the forest, the sounds of wildlife grew louder. The buzzing of alien insects, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional distant growl of a creature. Jessa paused for a moment, her senses sharp. She didn't trust the silence. The predators here were territorial, and she had no doubt that she was being watched. Suddenly, A loud snap broke the silence. A twig underfoot. A mistake. Jessa's eyes widened. Before she could react, something large and dark leapt from the shadows, its glowing eyes fixed on her. It was a creature she hadn't seen before. Something between a wild cat and a massive spider, with claws like knives and a body built for speed. It lunged, and Jessa ducked instinctively, rolling to the side. Her survival instincts kicked in as she scrambled to her feet, heart racing. The creature didn't retreat, it circled her, ready to strike. It was faster than anything she had faced before. She didn't have the luxury of time to think. She had to act. Using the nearby trees for cover, Jessa darted into a thicket, hoping to lose the creature in the dense foliage. But the predator was relentless. She could hear it closing in, its claws scraping the ground, its breath hot on her heels. She needed a plan. Running wouldn't save her. She knew that. She had to turn the tables. Her eyes scanned the environment around her. The trees were thick, and the underbrush was tangled. There had to be something she could use to her advantage. Then she saw it, an old hollowed-out log half buried in the dirt. The perfect trap. Jessa took a deep breath and crouched low, preparing her next move. She picked up a sharp rock from the ground and threw it into the opposite direction, hoping to mislead the predator. It worked. The creature snapped its head, in the direction of the sound, momentarily distracted. With quick, calculated steps, Jessa dashed for the log, diving inside just as the creature charged past her hiding spot. She could feel its claws graze her suit as it missed by inches. For a moment, there was silence. Jessa stayed still, holding her breath. The predator's footsteps faltered. It circled, its instincts telling it something was wrong, but it couldn't see her. The seconds felt like an eternity as she listened to its confused growls echoing through the forest. Finally, the creature moved off, no longer searching for her. Jessa let out a slow breath, relieved for now, but not naive enough to think she was safe. She knew the predators of this world didn't give up so easily. This had only been the first test. There were many more dangers lurking, and the wilderness hadn't finished with her yet. Jessa emerged from the log cautiously, moving with even more precision than before. Her mind was sharper now, knowing that surviving this world wasn't just about avoiding danger. It was about thinking faster than the predators and using the environment to outsmart them. She wasn't just running from danger anymore. She was learning to turn it into an advantage. The true challenge had only begun. The unexpected alliance. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling longer than the last. Jessa's breath came in shallow, gasps as she moved through the alien forest, staying low and careful. The near-death experience with the creature still echoed in her mind, its glowing eyes haunting her thoughts. But survival was her only focus now. She couldn't afford to let fear consume her. As the sun began to dip behind the dense canopy, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Jessa noticed something strange. The usual sounds of the forest, distant roars, screeches, and insect buzzes, had faded into an eerie quiet. She paused and listened carefully. It was as if the entire forest had gone still, holding its breath. Then a low growl broke the silence. Jessa froze. It wasn't the same creature from before, it was something else, something much larger. The growl came again, deeper this time, vibrating through the air. She could feel the ground beneath her, feet trembling as though the very earth itself was bracing for impact. The predator was near, and it was not alone. Jessa quickly scrambled for cover, ducking behind a thick tree trunk, her heart pounding in her chest. She dared not make a sound. Her survival training kicked in. Stay silent, stay still. The creature would pass by, but instead of moving away, the growl grew louder, closer. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught movement. 3 figures emerging from the trees. They were unlike any creatures she had seen before. Their long, sinewy bodies rippled with muscle, their faces narrow, with sleek black scales glinting under the fading light. They were the apex predators of this world, the ones that the cadets had been warned about. They were part of a pack. And now, the pack was surrounding her, her body tensed, her mind racing. This was it, the moment she had feared. She was cornered and there was no way out. The creature's eyes gleamed with hunger, their teeth sharp and glistening. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the predators stopped. The alpha, the largest one, stepped forward, sniffing the air around Jessa. It circled, her slowly, its head tilting as if it was studying her. Jessa's instincts screamed at her to run, to fight, but she couldn't. She had no weapons, no way to defend herself. She was at their mercy. But something in the way the alpha observed her made Jessa hesitate. It wasn't aggression that she saw in its eyes, it was curiosity. Jessa held her breath, unsure of what to do. She couldn't fight them, but maybe she could understand them. She had faced predators before, many of them far worse than this, but she had never encountered one that seemed to think. These creatures weren't acting like mindless hunters. They were intelligent. They were calculating. The alpha's eyes locked onto hers, and for a long moment they stared at each other, an unspoken understanding passing between them. It was a feeling Jessa hadn't expected. Respect. The predator wasn't just sizing her up as prey, it was considering her. Perhaps it saw something in her, something it didn't see in the other beings it had hunted before. Slowly, cautiously, Jessa took a step back. She didn't run, but she didn't approach either. She remained still, letting the alpha make the next move. To her surprise, the alpha nodded once, a gesture that seemed almost human, and then turned away. The other two predators followed, their eyes never leaving Jessa's figure. The tension in the air didn't immediately lift, but as the pack disappeared, into the shadows, Jessa allowed herself a shaky breath. They had spared her life. But why? What had just happened? Her mind swirled with questions. Was this a sign of weakness on their part? Or had she just done something to earn their respect? And more importantly, had this been her last encounter with the predators? Or had she just crossed into a new, more dangerous territory? Jessa stood there, still and silent, as the forest returned to its strange, unsettling quiet. The predators were gone, but their presence lingered in the air, heavy with mystery. She knew this wasn't over. Something had changed, and she was no longer just a cadet trying to survive. She had just become a part of something much bigger than she could have imagined. The pack's shift, the days blurred together in the wild. Jessa had spent what felt like an eternity avoiding the creatures, using her wits to stay one step ahead. Yet with each passing day, the pack of predators seemed to be watching her more carefully. Their eyes glinted from the shadows, always observing, always waiting. Jessa felt their presence every moment, but they never made a move to attack. Instead, they followed her from afar, almost as if they were studying her. At first, she thought it was a fluke. The predators were just watching her out of curiosity. But the longer it went on, the more she realized something was shifting in the air. The predator pack, once fierce and unstoppable, was changing its behavior. It was subtle at first. Small things like the way they circled her without closing in, or the way their movements seemed to have purpose. They weren't just hunting her anymore. They were following her. Jessa couldn't understand it. Was she being hunted, or was she being tested? Had she earned their respect, or were they waiting for something else? The creatures didn't behave like typical predators. They were too calculated, too intelligent. They didn't seem to want to kill her, at least not in the way she expected. One evening, after a particularly tense day of avoiding their eyes and staying hidden in the thick underbrush, Jessa came across something strange. She was trekking through a narrow valley, the walls of rock, rising sharply on either side when she saw a small opening in the distance. It was a cave, a hidden place away from the watchful eyes of the pack. She instinctively knew it was safer to investigate. Perhaps it offered shelter or something that might help her survive. But as she drew closer to the entrance, she noticed movement. The pack had found her again, and this time, they weren't, lurking in the distance. The alpha predator stood just outside the cave, watching her with those piercing, calculating eyes. It didn't approach her, but it didn't move away either. It simply waited like a sentinel guarding the entrance. Jessa froze. There was something different in the way the Alpha looked at her now. It wasn't just curiosity or hunger. It was something deeper, something almost expectant. She didn't know why, but she stepped forward. It wasn't out of fear, but out of an inexplicable pull. Something inside her knew that the Alpha had something to say, even if it didn't use words. Slowly, she moved closer, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no weapon, no way to defend herself if this was an ambush. But she couldn't turn back now. The Alpha predator didn't react. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, as if acknowledging her presence. Jessa felt a chill pass over her as she reached the entrance of the cave, her eyes never leaving the predators. It was as though the creature was silently guiding her, urging her to step inside. Inside the cave, the air was cool, and the space was large, filled with strange markings on the walls, deep, intricate symbols Jessa couldn't understand. But what caught her attention wasn't the drawings. It was the bones scattered across the floor, large humanoid bones, some of them broken and twisted in unnatural ways. She stepped closer, her foot brushing against the remains of what looked like an ancient, long-dead creature. And then it hit her, the realization that the predators weren't just testing her survival skills. They were watching her because they had seen something in her, something they hadn't seen in any other being. She wasn't just prey to them anymore. She was something else, something that had earned their respect. The predator pack wasn't just waiting for her to make a mistake. They were waiting for her to make the next move. Whatever it was, it had to be something they hadn't seen before. They were preparing for her to lead them. As the realization settled into her mind, Jessa looked back at the Alpha. It wasn't staring at her with hunger anymore. It was patient. It was waiting for her to choose. The pack wasn't just a threat, it was now a potential ally. The air shifted. The pack was changing, and so was she. The rules of the game were no longer about survival. They were about something far bigger: leadership, respect, and the unknown. The path she was about to take with the predator pack at her side. The hunt had just begun, but this time it was no longer just about her survival. It was about her leading the way. The turning point. The days blurred into one another as Jessa adapted to her new reality. The pack was no longer just a threat. It was her closest companion in this alien world. At first, the predators kept their distance, observing her with an air of quiet expectation. But over time, they began to follow her, mimic her movements, and respond to her actions. It was as if they were learning from her, waiting for her to show them the way. The forest, once a place of fear, had become a strange ally. Jessa's instincts, honed on the death world she came from, were sharpened by this environment. She could hear the faint rustle of leaves, feel the subtle shift of the ground beneath her, and sense the presence of creatures before they even revealed themselves. The predators, once deadly and unpredictable, had come to rely on her for guidance. They no longer saw her as prey. She had earned her place among them, and that made her feel powerful in ways she hadn't imagined. But one fateful night, everything changed. Jessa was crouched in the dense underbrush, her keen eyes scanning the dark horizon. The pack was nearby, crouched low in the shadows. The air was thick with tension, but something felt off. She couldn't quite place it. But there was a change in the wind, a shift in the sounds around her. The usual hum of insects had quieted, and even the predators seemed more alert than usual. Without warning, a strange, bone-chilling howl echoed through the trees. It wasn't the call of a predator she recognized. This was something different, something far more dangerous. The pack immediately tensed, their muscles coiling, ready for action. The Alpha turned to Jessa, eyes wide with warning. It was as if it was waiting for her command. Jessa's heart raced. She had heard tales of creatures far more terrifying than the predators of this world. Were they about to face something worse? Something that would not hesitate to kill them all? The howl came again, louder and more menacing this time. It was close, too close. And then she saw them. Out of the darkness emerged a massive shadow, unlike anything she had ever seen. It was a creature twice the size of the apex predators, with dark, spiny armor covering its body, and eyes that glowed with an unnatural red hue. Its movements were swift, fluid, almost ghostly. It was an apex predator in its own right, but it was something more, something ancient. The pack moved into position, but Jessa knew they were no match for this creature. The Alpha turned to her again, a silent question in its gaze. Would she fight, or would she run? For the first time since she had stepped into this alien world, Jessa felt a rush of fear. But it wasn't the fear of death. It was something far more profound, a realization that the balance had shifted. The creatures she had once feared were now allies, but even they could be destroyed. Jessa clenched her fists, trying to steady her breathing. This was the turning point. She could run, hide, or surrender to the overwhelming terror that threatened to engulf her. But deep down, she knew there was only one choice. In a flash of clarity, she understood the predators had been waiting for this moment, for her to prove herself as a leader. It was time to stop running from fear. It was time to face the creature head-on. She was no longer just a cadet or a survivor. She was their leader. She turned to the Alpha, her eyes fierce and determined. "We fight." The pack, understanding the command without a word, surged forward, and Jessa followed. This battle wouldn't be easy, but it was one she had to lead. There was no turning back now. The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome would determine not just her fate, but the future of the pack and the galaxy itself. The predators weren't just following her anymore. They were fighting for her. The hidden truth. The forest erupted into chaos as Jessa and the predator pack charged at the massive creature, their instincts synchronized, their movements a dance of raw power and precision. The creature they faced was unlike any predator Jessa had encountered before. Its spiny armor glinted under the dim light of the alien moon, and its eyes burned with an intelligence that sent a chill down her spine. This was no ordinary beast. It was a force of nature, a living nightmare designed to conquer and destroy. The pack moved swiftly, but it quickly became clear that brute force alone wouldn't be enough. The creature's movements were fluid and unpredictable, like a shadow that darted through the darkness. The predators lunged, their claws slashing, but the creature was always one step ahead, twisting and dodging with supernatural speed. Jessa, at the back of the line, watched carefully, her mind working quickly. The predators fought with ferocity, but it was Jessa's mind, her sharp, calculating instincts, that would make the difference. She spotted a weakness in the creature's attack pattern. Its left flank was slightly exposed every time it lunged forward. Without hesitation, Jessa signaled to the alpha predator, who immediately adjusted its approach. The pack followed, closing in on the creature's weak side, forcing it to retreat. For the first time, the creature hesitated. It was still powerful, still terrifying, but it was being outmaneuvered. Jessa felt a surge of confidence. This wasn't just about strength, it was about knowing how to use the terrain, how to outthink the opponent. She had learned this the hard way on her homeworld, where survival meant using every advantage, no matter how small. As the battle raged on, the creature began to slow. It wasn't because it was injured, but because it was realizing something. It was being outsmarted. Jessa's heart raced. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She pushed forward, closer to the creature than ever before, her eyes locked on its movements, searching for the final opening. And then, it happened. The creature let out a roar, one of frustration and fury, before turning to flee into the dark depths of the forest. It was not beaten, but it was retreating. The pack, startled, paused in disbelief. Had they truly driven it off? Jessa stood there, breathing heavily, her mind still racing. The creature had run, but why? What had caused it to retreat, especially after showing such dominance? She turned to the alpha predator, whose glowing eyes met hers with a quiet understanding. Something had changed. It wasn't just that they had won the battle. It was that the creature had known something. It had known they were more than just prey, more than just creatures to be hunted. They were something else, something different. As the pack gathered around, Jessa's thoughts began to form into a dangerous realization. This battle wasn't just one of survival. It was a warning. The creature had left, but it wasn't because they had defeated it. It was because they had proven themselves worthy of something much greater. The predators weren't just a pack. They were protectors, guarding something far more valuable than survival. Something hidden, something ancient. The truth, Jessa now understood, was far beyond anything she had ever imagined. She wasn't just leading the pack. She had become part of a much larger story, one that stretched back through the ages. There was more to this world, more to the predators than anyone had ever realized. The ancient creature, the one that had fled, had been guarding something far more powerful than its own existence. Jessa now knew what she had to do. The fight had only just begun, and it was no longer just about surviving. It was about discovering the hidden truths of this world, truths that could change everything. She wasn't just a cadet anymore. She was a leader on the edge of uncovering the greatest mystery of all. The future of the pack, and perhaps the entire galaxy, depended on the choices she made next. The ultimate leader. The night was still, the dense alien forest now eerily quiet after the chaos of battle. Jessa stood in the shadows, her breath slow and controlled as she watched the remaining predators gather around her. The Alpha, still, breathing heavily, approached her with cautious steps, its eyes filled with respect and something more, an acknowledgement of her strength. The pack, once a group of ruthless hunters, now looked to her, waiting for guidance. The world had changed, and Jessa had become the fulcrum upon which everything pivoted. But as Jessa stood there, something gnawed at her. The battle with the ancient creature had revealed more than she had expected. It wasn't just about survival anymore. The creature had retreated, but the pack had shown something she hadn't fully understood. They were more than just protectors. They were guardians, keepers of something much larger, something that had been buried deep within the fabric of this world for centuries. Her thoughts drifted back to the creature's flight, the way it had sensed that something had shifted. There was more at play here than simply the strength of the pack. It was as if the creatures, and the world itself, had been waiting for Jessa to lead them, waiting for her to become part of something much bigger. She turned to face the pack, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She wasn't even just a leader. She had become the key to something that could reshape this entire world. They had given her the title of leader. But what did that truly mean? To lead wasn't just to command. Jessa had learned that from her Deathworld, from the lessons of struggle and survival. Leadership was about vision, about understanding the deeper currents that pulled everything together. It was about knowing when to fight and when to hold back, when to stand and when to move forward. The alpha predator stepped closer, its massive form casting a long shadow across the ground. For a moment they locked eyes. There was no need for words. The respect was mutual. It wasn't just a pack of predators following her. It was a new kind of alliance, one forged in trust, in battle, and in survival. But it was the truth she had uncovered that changed everything. This world, this strange, deadly planet, held secrets far beyond the predators and the ancient creatures. Jessa realized that the creature they had fought, the one that fled, wasn't just trying to protect its territory. It had been guarding something older than any of them. There were layers to this world that no one had yet uncovered, and Jessa was standing on the brink of a revelation that could change the balance of power not just here, but across the stars. As Jessa looked out at the dense, unknown terrain before her, she felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. She wasn't just part of a battle anymore. She was the catalyst for change. This wasn't just about fighting for survival. It was about leading the way to uncover ancient truths, to unite forces that had once been enemies, and to unlock the power hidden in the heart of this planet. The alpha predator, once a beast of terror, now stood by her side, and the rest of the pack, once predators in their own right, were now a formidable force bound by loyalty and respect. Jessa had earned her place among them, not by strength alone, but by her ability to see beyond the immediate dangers, to see the bigger picture. "Let's go," she said quietly. her voice steady yet filled with a new purpose. The predators moved in unison, following her lead, their eyes bright with determination. Jessa was no longer just a cadet, no longer just a survivor. She was the leader of the pack, and this world, with all its hidden dangers and ancient secrets, was now hers to shape.